Well, hello and welcome to Real Talk with the Cummings. My name is Sick Mark Angelo.
And I'm well.
For a change, it's usually the other way around. I don't
Yeah.
know. I think I got some sort of something at the gym or some sort of. Actually, we got a new fan, and I think that's the culprit.
Yeah.
I think that kind of like dried out my mucus
Yeah,
lining.
because you let it point right at
Yeah,
you.
well, it's hot here in South Florida.
It is hot.
Super hot, and I think just dried out my mucus lining, and I've got 101.8 fever, and
It's a miracle you're even sitting here right
yeah,
now.
and we did leg days today, even
I went to the gym. Regardless.
Anyway, enough of our blabbering. Tonight we have an amazing guest, actually a guest that I've known for quite a while now. Will used to be part of Not Straight TV. He had a show on there, and I'm going to show you a little clip in a minute. But right now, I'll tell you a little bit about Will. If you don't know about him, Bill was born to a white heteronormative couple. Will MC Group lived a typical life until his biological parents separated in 1997. After the death of his biological father in 1999, there began some of the most complicated aspects of Will's life.
He was introduced to the concept of homosexuality by being called faggot and queer from 6th grade to the freshman year of high school. And from that point, he changed high schools from Southern Huntingdon County High School to McConnellsburg High School. Due to the influence of the same fundamentalist Christianity his mother was strongly involved in, Will was brought up to be in denial of his sexuality his entire teenage life.
Any attempt as a heterosexual relationship felt forced and unnatural. As far as he was concerned, despite going to the evangelical camp, the Wilds, and also attending Bob Jones University, sadly, Will was stupid enough to believe that Christian God called him to attend a racist, sexist, homophobic university. Will eventually came to terms with his true self at age 20 and came out of the closet to the world.
He would then spend the next several years making YouTube videos that caught the attention of the amazing atheist, whose publicity gave him enough ground to get Will a live podcast on Not Straight TV, who also hosted Mark Angelo Cummings, earliest version of Transition Radio TV. Nowadays, Will lives with his two boyfriends, D'Angelo Johnson and Andrew Yunker, and prefers the quiet life, although he is preparing for an internet comeback.
Don't like it? Don't watch it. And leave it the fuck alone. Love, Will. And welcome to the Epic Gates of Will show. I'm your host, Will Group. Here, once again, bringing you epic fucking television, whether or not we have guests, because that's the amazing thing about this show is that guests are optional.
And now, welcome to the show, Will Group.
Hello, everyone.
It's been quite a while since you've been behind the camera like that.
Oh, yeah, it's been quite some time. I took a few years off. Had to get a few of my personal scruples situated. Now I think I'm at a point where that's it's 85% completed, not exactly 100%, but close enough. And now I'm here with you guys.
You seem to be quite the natural, when you were doing that show. You look comfortable on camera.
Oh, thank you. I will say, though, just for self-criticism, I'm surprised that I don't know, some of those things I was saying did come off a little bit goofy.
Well, I mean,
I probably wouldn't like be saying things like epic fucking television, but
we go through different stages in life. I believe that it's all part of our growth, and there's no wrong or right. I think if we didn't grow that way and went through different stages, we wouldn't evolve as humans.
That is very true, yes.
I mean, I know we've gone through all sorts of different things, and I mean, it's part of life. And, I think that humans love to judge, and we're all just like little babies trying to learn our way around and there's no manual. So we're like going along and learning as we go, that kind of thing. So, but I did like your show. I think you were real, honest. You were probably playing out a lot of the stuff that you went through as a youth. And as we read in your bio, it seemed that, and you went through a lot of that stuff too.
Oh, yeah.
Lena was also raised and
I went to an evangelical, upbringing all my life, and then ended up getting schooled as a Christian and going to Bible college. And I feel for you. You went to Bob Jones, huh? Wow.
Oh yes, that wonderful white, it's such a haven of insanity.
Oh yeah.
So maybe some of that was coming out, on your show, which is, it's good. It's a healing tool. I'm sure you helped a lot of people, with what you were saying, and sparked a lot of reactions and emotions in people that needed to be felt.
Oh yes, that was one thing. That was definitely, the show was definitely therapy for me there. When I was actually going through phases like Bob Jones and growing up as a little Christian boy out in the middle of rural PA, there was a lot of things that I just felt I was not allowed to voice. There's a lot of frustrations I just had to bottle up, pretend didn't exist. And by the time I finally got to Pittsburgh without any of that supervision, it just came exploding out like fucking Hiroshima.
And that happens a lot with individuals that are raised in that kind of constraint. It's like having a bird in a cage, and then all of a sudden you just let a little bit of the cage open, and that bird is bolting out.
I mean, being in PA, it sounds like a similar story to what happens to Amish kids, when they're living their life all restrained and everything in the rural backcountry, and then they get to taste the real world, and then most of them don't want to come back, right?
Of course not. Well, we put some questions together here for you, and at any time, viewers, if they want to go ahead and call in at 575-519-5930, or you could actually go on our website. There's a chat and watch feature that you could actually chat the questions if you are shy. You could also text on that 575-519-5930. We always welcome everyone's input, as long as you're respectful and try to keep it, not PG, you could do it R, but try to just respect. Anyway, tell us about your upbringing, your heterotypical parents, and the event that created the disruption of your typical life, as you mentioned.
Let's see, my mother was it still is, she's that very nice, humble little lady, humble little white heterosexual lady who grew up in the middle of rural Pennsylvania, subconsciously succumbed to some of the sexism, although, I would never tell her that to her face. She'd probably pummel me one. Because, she might be nice, she might come off meek, but piss her off, like she'll fucking deck you. And let's see, my biological father, he was just one of those weird, like, super masculine types, like toxic levels of masculinity. What he thought was genuine humor actually just came off as grade A assholism. Like
by any chance, like a sarcastic type of personality?
Oh yeah, except this was like sarcasm on I don't know what kind of drug. But
on steroids.
Yeah, steroids.
That seems to be a very typical scenario with a lot of the men that are Christian, or they're all into that conservative mentality. And in my opinion, they're trying to hide something. Because I think that if someone has to overly be alpha and overly be masculine, there's something inside that they're trying to hide, and they're being tormented inside. And I'm sure he was probably not very nice to you because you weren't like he was trying to be.
Right, and I didn't realize until I went from homeschool back into public school in 6th grade that I guess I was just a little too femme for, most of the other males that I was growing up around.
And that must have been very difficult. I know that you had the world on your shoulder, and you're the youngest out of you, have a sister, and they expect certain things of you. And you're almost like expected to carry this torch and be this man. And if you don't feel it and that's not who you are, it's got to be a very difficult situation.
Yeah, exactly. And I was into kind of the same things my mom was. She was into a few arts and crafts related things, and that's what I like to do. But I guess that just seemed out of place for certain other individuals.
And I don't realize that actually really messes people's life, their personality, they become shameful, they don't trust, they become angry because we want to be a certain way. We want people to love us and like us, and we try to do everything we can to have that, but we can't fight what comes natural. And so it's like this battle of the devil and the angel in our head, and we keep putting ourselves down, and we keep making ourselves feel this small, and it's all due by our upbringing and the way they make us feel, and they're hurting people. They're killing. It's abuse, flat out abuse.
I mean, does your mom still reach out to you, like, you know, I hope someday that you would come to understand that Jesus, blah 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 blah?
Yeah, she still does that, and she's also she's still a bit on the homophobic side, though not nearly as bad. In fact, she's kind of sensitive about it when it comes to talking about the type of stuff with me now. You know, she doesn't necessarily want to hurt my feelings, so she'll try to, I don't know, she'll either try to sidestep, or, you know, she'll just not stay on the subject very long. It's like, no, I disagree with that. I hope that, you know what I mean.
It's difficult. It's one of those things. I mean, I'm 13, 14 years into my transition, and my mother still refers to me by female pronouns. She still calls me by my female name, and there's just no having it. She says, I gave birth to a daughter, I didn't give birth to a son. And, you know, I don't know if it's, and my mom's like, what, like 70 something. I don't know if it's a generation, you know, the Latin thing. I mean, they just don't get it. And I think it's something to do that it reflects on them, and they're like embarrassed or something. I don't know.
I mean, yeah. I would think so.
What do you think? Well,
yeah, like parents like ours can really be really set in their ways, and it's just like they just do not want to accept this alternate way of being. It's like, I've been brought up like this, so no reason for me to agree with anything else.
And they don't realize that they don't own us. We're not their property. We have our own feelings. We have our own way of thinking, and
exactly.
They need to live their life and let us live ours, because that's how it is. And they're not helping. They're actually hurting.
But then they usually go on saying, we love the sinner, hate the sin, that whole thing. And that already excludes people when they do that. But when it comes from parents, it's another level of of pain that that we have to work through.
Yeah, it's damn near traumatizing. And I'm sorry, but I'm always going to scoff whenever I hear that whole love the sinner, hate the sin bullshit, because it's like, well, for one thing, I know damn well that those people, if they look at their actual hearts, they actually hate the sinner along with the sin that they also despise. Yeah.
It's sad, because there are some individuals that are Christian, that are loving and try to be as accepting as possible. But the ones that speak the loudest, the evangelical, the ones that are, the real extremists, they ruin it for everyone. And unfortunately, because they're the ones that scream the loudest, that's the voice that we hear. I mean, I truly believe that I'm hoping that there are some really good Christians out there, and they need to stop speaking up, because what happened with the 49 dead a few weeks ago and this continual hatred towards the LGBT needs to stop. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's 2016. Enough is enough.
And just on a side note, I would like to add how much the mainstream media actually loves us. Like when we can't get them the most ratings, if making the Pulse shooting story into an anti-Muslim thing gets them higher ratings, guess which direction they're going to go into? Because I tell you what, that had nothing to do with ISIS. That had nothing to do with Islam or Muslims. I hate how some people say that word. It had to deal with internal struggle, homophobia. That's why those people died.
I believe that. I truly believe that they use this as an opportunity to instill more fear, as they always do. And, the homophobia stuff doesn't sell ratings. It's ISIS, it's terrorists. That sells a lot of rating. And also it creates the fear that now that it's election year, they won. Because they always use everything when it comes near election time, and it's just crazy stuff.
Well, there was this article that was in a famous Christian magazine, and sometimes I like to comment on these things with people. on the boards and stuff. And the article was called "Sorry, but We Don't Rewrite the Bible for Gays and Lesbians." And it's this guy, he's got some kind of radio show for years. His name is Dr. Michael Brown. And he has his standards of what he believes is, sin and that homosexuality, blah, blah, blah. They use all the typical clobber verses from Leviticus and then the Romans 1 and all this stuff that they use. And I posed a question. I haven't had it answered yet, but I said, to be honest with you, how can any of you hold fast to the homosexuality sin thing? Because the Bible says so, opinion, when you see an obviously effeminate young boy or a very young butch girl, they're not living a lifestyle at 3 years of age. They barely have learned to walk and say a few words, but here they are, and they're behaving in what is a very normal manner for them. They're not struggling with anything other than the jeers and the odd looks from family members. Their parents are the ones who are embarrassed at how their probably gay child is behaving because they're ashamed of their behavior. What will the neighbors think? Our friends at church? Oh no, what if my parents find out, that their grandchild is effeminate, And these are the things that these people just do not quite understand. They have like this black and white view, which is rather outdated, but I mean.
What do you think, Mark?
I think you're definitely on point with that question. You said that nobody's had the courage to answer it yet.
They don't know how to answer that, because how do you say a 3-year-old? They probably go, well, sin enters the life of a baby because Satan gets in them. And I mean, these people come up with all sorts of stuff.
They do. They're like, they're born into sin.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff.
So after the death of your dad, your life changed. Can you elaborate?
Yeah. Let's see, it was back in August 1999. My biological father, he died in a sudden vehicular accident involving one of his work vehicles. He worked for an electrical company, and somebody was driving along the wrong something, so he tried to get out of the way. Truck tips over, truck crushes. He somehow gets ejected out of the car, and then the car lands on top of him. So yeah, that was I honestly didn't know how to respond to that at that point because it was terrifying. It was sudden. I didn't know how to respond to it on that hand, and then on the other hand, in the back of my mind, I was thinking about how he treated my mother, how he treated me, and how borderline abusive he used to get. So I just felt conflicted most of the time.
You probably felt guilt because you probably felt that you might have caused them because you probably thought a lot of things during the time that he was alive. And we tend to, as humans, put the blame on ourselves when anything happens. That's part of what we do. That's how our minds tend to work. So I'm sure you struggled a lot with that.
Oh yeah, there was a little bit of guilt. Could I have set aside my differences with him and at least we've gotten on good terms, because that was another thing. He and I were not on good terms right before, literally right before this happened. It was maybe a matter of days. We got into a little argument. It was really stupid. It was about some video games that I had at his house. He did not want me to take the video games out of his house because he swore that was the only reason I came over there in the first place. I tried to tell him it wasn't. But, 10-year-old me, I got pissed off. I was like, fine, whatever, have these stupid things. I'm out of here. And those were literally my last words to him before he went away.
Have you tried to make amends, sometimes writing things, journaling, just going inside yourself and maybe trying to reach out in spirit form? Have you tried to make it right just for yourself, for your own sanity, for your own peace of mind? Because sometimes I find that that's very helpful, that even though they're gone, you still talk to them and you try to create some sort of bond, some sort of reconciliation, and I don't know. Have you tried that?
I have written a few screenplays, or at least a few drafts involving a character who exemplified the positive aspects of my biological dad, and despite his faults, he did care about me. He cared about his family, and he did try to do his best. Like the way that he got his job at the electric company was just amazing. He was just trimming hedges, I think, and then one day they're like, "Hey, we want to teach you how to do this. Can you come over here? We can show you how." And then the next thing we know, over time, he becomes a guy working for the electric company.
Interesting. So can you go back to your high school years? What do you remember was the most impressionable moment, and why?
What do I remember? Well, I would like to rewind just literally a little bit to sixth grade, because in the school that I grew up, sixth grade was still part of elementary school. Like we didn't have like a middle school or whatever, but that was whenever people started calling me terms like faggot, queer, homo, and I didn't even know what the hell those words meant, because my mom kept me under such a bubble during the high school years. I'm just like, well, what are these words? Why do they keep calling me this? She's like, and she very nervously goes to me and says, "Gay means homosexual."
Wow.
And she wanted to explain that, and that was like literally less than a year before I went through puberty, so I didn't know how the hell I felt toward any gender. Then when I did go through puberty, I found out that I was attracted to the same gender. I didn't like it at the time, but that's the way it was.
I think your show was a way of you trying to heal. I think that show that whole, and it makes sense to me now, seeing your history and how your biological father passed away, and how things were probably not resolved between you guys. I think that the show was very important for your healing. And I think it was just...
Oh, yeah. I definitely agree with that. It definitely helped me to get a lot of frustration. If not, even if it came at the cost of people watching the show and being like, "Why the hell is this kid so angry?" Like, he scares me. I'm just like, I am not that scary of a dude. Like, I'm just going on there and I get pissed off about stuff like anybody else would.
It was your platform. It was a way of you. Some people run, some people drink, some people, do all sorts of different things to try to work through a lot of the issues that they have. But it's important to work through these issues, no matter what it takes, because the worst thing a person can do is bottle it up and not let it come out in some way or another. That's how you get these serial killers like the Omar, who, ended killing 49 people. And we don't want that to happen. We want people to work through things, and be able to look at their anger, feel it, own it, and I always say then let it go, because it doesn't solve anything to keep holding on to fear, anger, guilt. All these things hurt you as a person. So we've got to find a way to work it through.
Exactly. And that's one thing. Like I told people even back then, I was like, this is probably one of the healthiest things I could do with my anger and frustrations. And, if that's not your cup of tea, then I'm sorry.
Switch the channel.
Exactly.
So how does it work, being gay in your family, and then with other family members? Do you have any other siblings? Do you have relatives that, responded and stuff like that negatively? And has there been any change in anybody?
I'd say, aside from my mother, the response from literally everybody else in my family, well, my grandmother had a rather adverse reaction to it, but I'd say the response from the rest of my family has either been no response or cool. So, yeah, I know for a fact that my sister's cool with it. I know that at least at least 2 of my aunts are cool with it. I think all 3 of them are, but 2 definitely for sure.
I think one of the things that we in the LGBT community need to learn is that we don't need to get approval or acceptance from anyone. And I think the sooner we learn that, the easier life would be, because I think now a lot of us just walk around life trying to get approval. And that causes unhappiness, because half the time we won't get approval, or we'll get false approval. So we need to work through things inside ourselves, inside our own psyche, and realize this is who we are. I'm perfect the way I am. If you don't like it, heck with me, that kind of thing. I mean, everybody has, a different way of being. I mean, and we should learn to coexist and respect one another.
Exactly. If there's one thing I've learned through life, it's one of the absolute worst things you can do to your own self is to bottle things up, because that will cause so much harm to you psychologically and even physically. That stress is going to wear on you big time. And unless you get rid of it right immediately now, it's just going to keep getting worse.
That's one of the things that I've always said. And I'm a nag a lot of times, and it drives her crazy, but I believe that if something's not resolved in my mind until it is, I'm going to keep talking about it. Because if I don't, then it's like I hear it in my head constantly, and that's what causes diseases and breakdown. And then you
happens to me.
Yeah.
You know what I don't understand well is when, Christians try to come up with a solution for being gay or whatever, and they say this: well, you can choose to be abstinent, practice abstinence, and see God work wonders. And it's like, so you're telling someone to bottle up their sexual drive, their sexual preference. I mean, for what? For a guy that supposedly hung on a tree 2,000 years ago that nobody has proof of?
That's another thing. I don't know if you've been reading. There's a lot of information coming out now that there is no historical fact on the life of Jesus, and it was all a creation of
the Flavians, Emperor Titus, Domitian, and Vespasian.
Yeah.
They came up with this concept to bring about like a Roman version of Jewish belief and stuff to pacify the rebellious Jews who were causing all kinds of insurrection in the Roman Empire. So they gave them what they wanted. They gave them a Messiah. But this Messiah was a good Messiah. He was a pacifist. He was pro-Roman, and he did whatever the empire told him to. So, I mean, that's another show.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we could do an entire 10-episode piece on that. But as for that whole thing, I think I know what you're getting at, the whole thing of, well, even if you can't choose to be gay, you can still choose whether or not you're going to act on those things. And I'm just like, okay, well, I can also choose not to partake of oxygen in the air. Not going to be the healthiest thing for me, though.
Exactly.
We always like to point out, because usually a lot of these Christians who do come up with these concepts and stuff, they're usually very overweight. And we wonder about the sin of gluttony.
Yeah.
Is it really important? Is it a sin in the Bible? Or are they just passing over it as if it doesn't matter?
It's their temple. They're not taking care of it. And, being overweight is actually mentioned as a sin.
More times than homosexuality would ever have been.
These gay people try to keep, fit because they want to look good. But Christians are overweight the majority of the time.
And they're like, oh, God's working on me with that.
Yeah, that always causes a laughing face palm. I guess I'm just like, well, I guess as long as they're not screwing each other, I guess they can bypass the gluttony thing.
Well, like most teens whose true identity or sexual preference where questions are halted, and what is that?
Where questions and halted.
And halted?
Yeah.
I don't know. Where questions were asked and halted, can you go into your relationships and how you finally discovered you?
Let's see. First relationship I had was with a woman I went to high school with, and I think that was the first real red flag, aside from the fact that I would secretly masturbate to gay pornography on the internet. But it was like over time, I just kept saying to myself, "You're lying to her. You are lying to this woman. She doesn't deserve this crap that you're putting her through just because you're insecure about yourself." And I was like, that was the closest I came to coming out of the closet before I actually went through with it at age 20. Like at age 18, I told her that I was bisexual. That's the term.
What's going on with the audio? Hold on, Will. Something's going on.
I'm sorry.
It's kind of moving out.
Go on just with usage and lower the bandwidth. Sometimes it may not. Let me see.
So is it still doing it?
Still.
Let me see. Let's go ahead and talk.
All right, testing. 1, 2, 3. Any better?
Mute his mic and then come back.
Okay, try to mute your mic and then come back and see this.
All right, sorry about this. Unmute.
Can you hear us?
I can definitely hear you.
Sounds like
You-
It's rare.
that's really, yeah,
I have this one.
that's not really happy. You know what it is? It sounds like you've got feedback. Like you've got your volume up or something.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that any better?
Still a little. Go ahead and talk again.
All right, testing. 1, 2, 3. How is it sounding?
I don't know why this is happening. But okay. Let's see. Go ahead and talk again.
Testing. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
It sounds like you're underwater. All of a sudden, it's underwater.
Do you disconnect or?
Maybe disconnect and connect back again.
Okay. All right. One moment.
All right, let's see. Yeah, because see, it's not happening on our end, but so it has to be the beauty of the internet. Let's see, there he is. Okay. Try again.
Right. Testing. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, you got it?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay, so you were answering regarding,
I finally discovered you.
yeah.
Okay, I'm not exactly certain what all came through. I was just basically talking about my first and only girlfriend that I had.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now you could probably put the volume up a little bit now that.
Okay. One moment here. That better?
That's better. Okay.
So where were we? Oh, yeah. Something along the lines of, aside from the fact that I have been secretly masturbating to gay porn off and on for those past few years, like the relationship with my girlfriend was the only other red flag where it was like, okay, Will, there is something going on here. And then there was the guilt. It was like, I'm lying to her. I'm being an asshole, all because I'm just a little scared. And I'd say that is the closest that I've come to coming out of the closet before actually coming out of the closet at age 20. Because, in between that point and actually coming out of the closet, I went into Bob Jones University and not only went back into the closet, but several closets within the closet.
And again, all stemming from the guilt, the way you were raised. You know, it's like Christianity teaches people to be liars, to cheat, you know,
to suppress.
I mean, and that can't be good. I mean, people need to be who they are. And that way, marriages, you know, people save the time in hurting other people, because there's a lot of individuals that get married, have no business getting married, and then just shouldn't lead their lives. But because we have to lie, because, you know, we're dealing with our own shame, all these things happen. And I think the sooner Christianity and everybody realizes that it's okay to be you, that is the most wonderful thing, to be truthful, then things will change. You know?
Exactly.
So what did you get out of attending a Christian university? I'm sure you're not
the biggest thing I got out of it is that there are so many Christians out there that are just flat out, straight up out of their goddamn minds. Like, and that's the most general way I could say it, like, pardon the lack of detail, but you would have these guys who keep on getting each other's asses about, well, I caught you doing this thing the other day, and if you're doing that, that means you're probably doing this, and if you're doing that, you're doing that thing, and that means I would have to question your salvation, mister. I'm just like, Jesus Christ. No pun intended, but
who died? You know, who died and made them boss? Who died and it's like all of a sudden the Christians are the moral police of the world. You know.
Mm-hmm.
There's Christian, and then there's the Christians that go to Christian university. And, you know, every other word is like, God bless you, brother. God bless you, sister. And, you know, it's like they like live in this cliche land of Christianese that they use amongst each other. And I came from California, so my kind of Christianity was more of a, you know, kind of a, hey, dude, easygoing. You know, I mean, they're the, you know, kind of like the surfer Christians or whatever.
Let's ride the wave for Jesus.
Yeah, yeah, whatever. So it was like I went to this southern, like you did, a southern Bible school, you know, and this was like in the middle of the deep south, just like you. I went to Baton Rouge. I went to a Bible college that this evangelist who got busted for being with prostitutes, you know, he was the head of it, you know, but
So
you couldn't show Jimmy Swaggart. Couldn't show any public display of affection. They called that PDA. I mean, you had to. I remember the girls had to go if they wanted to go play tennis. They had to wear sweats because, you know, girls couldn't wear shorts at school. Of course, I'm sure you know what the rules were about that on these campuses. And basically, there was a big, huge pile of guys around the fence where the tennis court was to what? To watch the girls taking their sweats off.
And then go probably jerk off.
You know, I mean, it was ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, and Bob Jones University, I don't know if they've changed rules at all about this, but females who attend this university, they cannot wear pants at all, not any form of two-legged anything. They have to wear dresses, maybe a skirt, I don't know, but yes, it's like, you know, there's this definite solid idea about, you know, what clothing is feminine and what's masculine, and that's what women have to wear.
It's so crazy how they pick on things like clothing, you know. It's like we should all run around naked. You know, that's how I think we were intended to live.
I'm a fan of that.
Especially here.
Especially here in South Florida. It's like, you know, I just like walk around naked, you know, because it's like hot as heck. But it's they find the stupidest thing to pick on. And it's like, they remind me of nerds in school that are always finding faults in people, and or a teacher that's always like, you shouldn't be doing this, you know. And it's like, get a life. So
exactly. It's like, you know, there's no problems like mass shootings or famine in South Africa. You know, there's nothing, there's nothing on that mediocre level of worry. You know, the big thing we got to worry about is who's entering the right restrooms, who's wearing a dress, and who's wearing jeans.
And who's messing around with who? Who's sleeping with who? I mean, it's like, please, people, we have a bunch of gossipers. I mean, it's like there are big problems in the world. You know, let's take care of those.
Exactly. Let's take care of our poor and starving. Let's try to pass some some common sense gun legislation to try to prevent people from getting the regular Joe from getting hold of an assault rifle. Yeah.
Exactly.
Now we're going to go on to the next question, but can you talk to us about Not Straight TV, the network where you both worked at and actually met, and your show?
Oh yeah. So how that happened was that first I had the YouTube thing going on, and then I was doing this other show with my boyfriend at the time and our roommate, and he wanted to put his show onto this new and up and coming live podcast thing happening in Pittsburgh called Not Straight TV. So he was the first one to go there and propose that show. And unfortunately, by the time we got to doing our show with him, we were on the verge of breaking up. So, and then that was where I, admittedly, a little bit deviously, went behind my soon-to-be ex's back, and I went to Joe and said, "Hey, so you could probably get just as many ratings by having a show with just me as you could all these other guys, because, apologies now, but the way that the what's-his-face treated me in that relationship was just detestable, and like there was nothing on my mind but revenge." But so next thing I know, his show is gone, my show is in.
Wow, talk about karma. That was really
And then not only did Joe get just as much ratings with a solo show, with my solo show, but he got like maybe 3 times as many. Because that was the only reason that his show got any ratings at all, was because people wanted to see me, but I guess they didn't want to put up with the other two.
Yeah, I kind of miss when Joe had the Not Straight TV. I think we were pretty close knit, and it was fun. It stopped being fun when Joe went over to Gay Life Television. But because he wasn't making any money, and we don't make any money doing this. I mean, I've been doing this now for 4 years. You get odd donation. When we had the battle with the trans community, we lost the sponsors that we had, but I refused to stop the show because I think it's a great show. I mean, when we were with Joe, it was like we used to have a lot of great ratings and people loved it. So,
Oh yeah, you guys definitely had arguably the best ratings on that entire network, and it was fun. And yeah, nobody was making money. I think we had a donate button, but I'm not. I can't remember that far back. But that's a small part of me wants the reason that is why Joe made the move to Gay Life Television. It's because he wanted to have a bit of a break, but I just wish he would show somebody else to do it, because somebody else to do this deal with, because, well, to put it politely, the head of Gay Life Television is a very controversial figure.
Very, to say the least. But it's a shame. It's a shame that he didn't hold on. I mean, sometimes it takes 5 years before you see a penny. Sometimes it's not about the money; it's about what you do, for people. And I believe that the universe will eventually reward people. And if you're doing what you love, that's to me. I mean, I look forward to every week doing the show. And it takes work finding the guests. It takes work to do everything that we do to get that show, the website, and the whole 9 yards. But it's my passion, and maybe one day it'll pay out. And if it doesn't, then I enjoy doing it. It's the way I feel about it.
And that's actually why I kind of want to get back into doing it myself. There's just a few more things in my personal life that I have to get situated. Like I would like to stop being unemployed. That's one. And then that's the big one. Like get a job and move to a new place, and then I can finally put more concentration on doing a new show again.
Yeah, it's you got to do what you love and be patient, and you never know.
Exactly.
So, what is your passion besides television, beside being a good person? You know, what is your passion? What do you enjoy?
Let's see. I'd say my true passion would be writing. Like I love writing screenplays, movie ideas. Uh, that's one of the big reasons I want to get back in school so I can fine tune my knowledge on filmmaking, because I love writing the stories. I love bringing them to the screen. That's the thing. Like I love being a storyteller.
Screenwriter is any kind of writing is and then you're into the camera thing. I mean, that's what you.
Yeah, I was pretty much a camera operator for a quarter of a century, you know, doing it, you know, as a freelancer and traveling around the country and the world, being able to film things and shoot things. And I had a couple of my own camera cranes and things like that. But life has changed quite a bit. But the passion for that hasn't. But we're thinking about things that we could come up with and things that are really at our heart about, you know, trying to get a message out. And we're going to be working on something here in the near future, but, you know.
It's exactly, just go exactly where your heart leads you. Absolutely.
I love seminars. I love to teach. I love helping people, you know, with self-help. My background is psychology, occupational therapy. So, you know, putting together seminars and then maybe videotaping them and then putting them out for mass production, because, you know, that works. You know, that's something. But again, it's just, you know, she went through the accident and it's been a whirlwind of things and challenges. And finally now things are settling. But, you know, you just got to follow your heart.
Exactly.
I think, you know, one of the things that comes to mind is that play that was done on Broadway called Rent. And the guy who was the screenwriter, his name was Jonathan Larson. And it's like he had this passion for telling a story. And then I think the tragic thing is that before he could see it complete, he passed away. But it's that passion that drives, you know, us and our humanity to do things. You know, it's like what we were born to do. It's like you're a born storyteller, and you can't do anything but, you know, have that opportunity to be able to tell your story, whatever that story is. So,
and not settle, because that's what they teach us, a 9-to-5 job, to settle, to take your spirit, soul away, you know, and that's what they want, to break us. And we need to do what our hearts tell us.
Exactly. I almost let that happen. There was a brief period where I had to move back in with my mother and father for like a year. This would be my adoptive / stepfather I'm talking about now. I had to move in there, and of course my mother, she's only concerned about me getting a job and making a living, and literally everything else is irrelevant. And I'm just like, Mother, you are not getting it. It's like, you know, I am not psychologically well in this area, Mom. There's a reason why I moved to places like Pittsburgh and Chicago and now Ypsilanti, Michigan.
The job market is very different now than it used to be. And it's just, I don't know, it's not conducive. They treat people like slaves, literally. And there's no joy. There's no joy in working anymore. You're not proud of what you're doing, because you're just like behind a cubicle, and it's just people become zombie and dead. And we're not meant to do that. We're meant to do things we love. We're meant to be creators.
Exactly. Like, you know, we're not meant for this mentality that, and I don't know, I don't even get why this mentality is so contagious, that, you know, there's a slave driver mentality going on in almost every single job. You know, especially in the United States nowadays.
Yeah. It's got to change. I'm finding that people are slowly awakening, and things as they're getting so bad, but that's what needs to happen. Sometimes before things get better, they have to really get bad. So things are happening. We're seeing it. I mean, just a little while ago, I don't know if you saved that something happened In Turkey, some sort of bomb or something, which you'll probably find out a little bit more, but it's like, oh, now what? You know, it's like, keep throwing stuff at us, left, right, and center.
But you know, there's like good things that come out of tragedy. And one of the good things that come out of tragedy is this story here talks about an Orlando massacre inspires some to actually come out as gay. You know, it's like some of these victims who were hurt that, you know, that eventually died, their parents maybe never would have known that they were gay, you know, and this gave an opportunity for others to, you know, to come out to their parents, you know, come what may, whatever, you know, whatever would happen. But it says, just hours after the music at the Pulse nightclub was interrupted by the roar of gunfire, a teenager with a nose stud and tight jeans peered across his dinner table there. He said, "Dad, I'm kind of gay." The worst mass shooting in the United States history by a single perpetrator, which left 49 people dead. And it has also had the incidental effect of pushing some gay people in this increasingly Latino community in Orlando to come out of the closet. And I think it's a really important thing for people to be able to be truthful, to live.
You know, I think the LG was kind of becoming complacent, and because, you know, gay marriage, everything is cool, and then all of a sudden this kind of threw a curveball, and it's like, it lets us know that there's still work to be done. We can't just sit there and just relax. You know, that there's always the hateful people, and that the work is never done.
Exactly. Like, I feel that a lot of people expected this to make the LGBT community more afraid, to drive more people back into their closets. And thankfully, the most beautiful thing happened. The exact opposite thing occurred. Like, we've got people who are now being a lot braver now. They're just like, you know what? I am tired of this. It is just, you know, it's not worth hiding. It's not worth becoming complacent. We are going to take a fucking stand.
Yeah, and prevent, you know, the things that happen, like Omar and his shame, because he had a very stringent father, and he was battling this whole homosexuality, and he was battling with the fact that he wanted to feel loved, and he married someone and had a child, but that wasn't what he wanted. So this whole, it's like, you know, he was dealing with a lot of issues that ended up creating a monster in him, and we need to stop these monsters from being created. We need to, you know, accept people for who they are. And, you know, this Christian religion and all these other Muslim religion and all these people that want to shame us need to stop and need to realize that we are who we are, and you can't change that. You know, you can't.
I mean, to continue the story, he says, "I just had to let them know," said Mr. Casillas, 19, a soon-to-be college freshman, who had been dancing at Pulse for more than a year, unbeknown to his Puerto Rican father and his Cuban mother. His mother had raised him in a church where parishioners learned that gay people went to hell. "This is getting to be a bigger part of me every day that passes on," he said of his sexuality. "I didn't know if I was going to be able to keep that from my family." And here's an opportunity now. He doesn't fear because of what happened to his friends, you know, that.
And I guess now the parents will be able to be grateful that the son is alive, and, you know, that they have to love him no matter what, because one day he may not be there.
And that's actually kind of how my mother is. Like, you know, I told you guys a while ago that she's still a bit on the homophobic side of things, but the one thing I can absolutely give her credit for is that she is putting her love for me above everything else.
That's awesome to hear. I mean, I don't know if there's hope for me, because my mom's like 83, 84, and I don't know, but I feel like we've talked about this. It's easier for them to maybe understand the gay thing than it is for them to ever understand the trans thing, especially if they're older and Christian.
Yep. In fact, I can't remember exactly if Cher is Christian, but I remember when Cher was talking about her son Chaz, like, she said she was perfectly fine with Chastity, quote unquote, being a lesbian, but, you know, she I had a hard time with, with having a son instead of a daughter.
That's what your mom
Yep.
pretty much echoed the same words, right?
Yeah, exactly the same words.
Now, you're thinking about restarting your show. What changes, if any, would you make, and what will be your focus?
I would say I would be a lot calmer. Since I'm at that point right now where I can actually pull that off without it becoming phony. And well, cursing hasn't really been that big of a deal for me. Like, if I'm calm, then by default I'm not going to be cursing as much. I would just love to have. I would still talk about the exact same things, things that are going on in the world, very important issues that if nobody's talking about them, but they need to be talked about, that's what I'm going to go to. So that aspect would definitely stay from my earlier show. Oh yeah, and I guess I would tone down a little bit with the satanic imagery, which also got misinterpreted along with my anger.
Like I said, everything has a season, and yeah, there was a reason behind what you were doing. It's another season, and you're in a different place. So I'm excited to see what you decide to actually do.
Oh, well, thank you.
Anything else you would like to add?
Just things are, well, some things are beginning to become stir crazy in general. I'd say after these past 3 years, on a personal level for me, everything is finally starting to cool down, and I've become a happier, calmer individual because of it.
That's good. Evolution is always good. Growth is important as humans, as a species. I always say, everything's good. Everything is as it should be. At the moment, it may not appear to be, but everything has a purpose. And we need to be less hard on ourselves and just look at our lives almost like a spectator and see, it's like, okay, this is what I needed to do to get through what I was feeling at the time. And, just go forward. Anyway, we want to thank you for being part of the show. We wish you much success when you decide to actually get back, and welcome you back any other time. And you talk more about religion. I mean, that stuff. We want to have a show that's based really deep on all this Roman information, and just another thing we love a lot is talking about the Anunnakis, and which a lot of people know them as the Elohim, which we have a theory on the gods of the Bible, and that they actually came and messed with the what you call it, the creation, the initial creation of the great I am, whatever name we want to call source, spirit. And I think that's why we're so messed up, because these Elohims or these Anunnaki really dislike Prime Creator's creation, and they've done everything in their power to mess with us. And I want to put a show together.
Well, and we literally believe that the God of the Bible is really not the God,
the true God
of creation.
Yeah.
And that he's kind of like an imposter, and one who's just stirred up so much chaos, so much destruction, and so many problems. And that's coming from a person who, raised in it, worked in it, played in it, sang in it.
It makes sense. I always say to people, go into your heart space. If you have like a truth detector in your heart space. If the truth detector tells you bullshit, then it's bullshit. If the truth detector, whatever you hear or see tells you, yeah, this sounds true, then you know that there's something to that. So, I mean, I see the version of Christianity, the greatest story ever told. I say to myself, bullshit. I hear other things, like that the whole religion was created, as you mentioned earlier, just to control people. Constantine did a great job in doing that. And then the whole Anunnaki Elohims and how they came down and, just messed with the creation. That rings very true to me. I don't know, how does that ring to you, Will?
Well, I'll tell you what, I've always had a suspicion that Christianity is actually a fairly new religion, because there have been like I don't know, like thousands of other religions that are significantly older than that one. And as far as I'm concerned, Christianity is the latest copy. It's the latest edition of, the same type of religion that we've all had. Like the story of Jesus being born, in a manger and all this stuff, and the three wise men, like all these peculiar numbers, they repeat from earlier renditions of similar characters in similar religions.
Yeah, like the movie Zeitgeist really goes into in detail about that. All the different, what's that? Iris or something like that.
Cirrus,
Horus, and all these different individuals, born a virgin and rose up. I mean, the same scenario was plagiarized. Christianity has a lot of plagiarism from pagan books.
Yeah, they basically kind of, what we were watching just the other day was that there's a lot of similarities between the story of Moses and the story of Jesus. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, it's like a historian went back, took pieces of that story, and then made it into the current story that everybody thinks is the special, Jesus story. But
exactly.
It's really not.
That's a show on its own, but
Yeah.
We want to go ahead and thank you. We want to thank the viewers for tuning in. And who do we have next Tuesday? Go ahead and open up on the schedule there. Next Tuesday is
It's July.
So
Forward a month.
So, Millie Ocampo. Actually, talking about Millie Ocampo, she is a Christian, heavy-duty Christian, with a great story, but her outlook is a little different, and she is genderqueer, I believe, and has really done a lot to try to bring in people to God, because I think Christianity pushes people away from God, and I'm like, they're the worst business people ever, because if you want to promote this God, you want to promote this concept, they're doing a terrible job about it. Really are. They're like the worst business people ever. So that'll be interesting. We'll come next week. And, it's going to be on 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as usual. So everyone is welcome to tune in. And as always, ask questions. Sometimes we get shows that a bunch of people ask questions. Sometimes we don't. It all depends. A lot of people watch the show on demand. I guess a lot of people are having dinner around this time, but this is the time of choice. Anyway, Will, thank you so much, and have a good
week. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. All right, guys, remember that we love you, but always remember to love yourselves too. Good night, and be well.